So you're about to market your property for new tenants. You have a price in mind to rent your property out for, but you're not 100% sure that this is the right price. So this can often be even more tricky if you've had tenants for some time now and are thinking about getting new tenants. Because often the thought is, if I was getting this much before, then I should be getting at least this much again, if not more. But basically, the market really doesn't care what prices were being achieved 2, 3, or 5 years ago. The active prospective tenants that you are competing with other landlords for are looking at what the other properties on the market now are basically renting for and comparing them to yours. This means that if your home has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 2 living areas, as an example, the prospective tenants on the market will be looking at other houses that have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 2 living spaces, and using these homes as a baseline to determine which properties are good value, and it'll also determine which houses they will apply to as well. Now, it is essential to understand that this means you need to be demonstrating value to your prospective tenants, and this is for a particularly good reason. You see, not all the people applying for homes are going to be the same quality of tenants. And also, not every prospective tenant will apply for every property they see. So great tenants will, I would say, have their pick of the litter, as everyone would like to rent to them. And they will likely see 2 or 3 properties that they like based on their needs, which will include the price, the presentation, along with features. And they won't worry about anything that's not going to be in the fair market value or better from their perspective. So now it's a case of determining what is fair market value, and while I discuss in other videos how to improve your ability to get properties leased at a higher fair value range consistently, how do you determine, fair rental value? So as I just mentioned, you're likely going to have prospective tenants look at 1 to 2 main ways to determine value, and you can do this too. Basically, do the same thing that your prospective tenants would do. Jump on Domain or realestate.com and compare properties. This is going to paint a relatively good picture, firstly, of what properties you'll be competing with and the levels of presentation that is currently out there. If all the properties are sitting at the same price point, then you can expect the property with the best presentation or the better location or features will attract the best applicants. If all the properties were of the same standard of presentation and features, so forth, then the price would affect the prospective tenants in that regard. So you will typically find that while there may be a few properties above or below the pack, so to speak, often the bulk of properties similar to your property will be within a similar range. So if your property is unique, this may mean looking at the closest subset and making an educated discussion from this point as into what it would be. But this could mean that you only have a 5-bedroom house in a market where most of the properties are 4-bedroom properties that are of a similar age and condition, and making that educated guess of what you think that value would be for the extra room, and your pricing then reflecting that. Now, while we get some great information from looking at the market, like your prospective tenants, the other essential part of working out your rental price is looking at the recent results of other similar properties in the area. Pretty much all agents have access to this type of data through our professional subscriptions, and there are a few reasons why this information is so helpful. So, for example, you can look at some of the online platforms like Domain or realestate.com, and you see some of the properties being advertised, and let's assume they're really attractive price to you as the landlord, as in they're a high price. But when we use our agent tools like CoreLogic or Pricefinder to look at these properties a little bit closer, we can see how long those properties have actually been on the market to be rented out to prospective tenants. Now, if that property's been vacant for weeks longer than the average time to be rented, then this isn't looking so attractive now, despite appearing like a great price at first glance. So with this kind of data, you can look at some of the key benchmarks, like what range are most of the properties that are of similar standard being rented out for, what is the average time on market for the area, and lastly, how do those properties compare with your property? We want to be able to make an educated decision about what price point your property should be marketed at to attract quality tenants based on both what is currently happening in your market and also what has recently been achieved in your area. Now, I'm Ricky from Real People Real Estate. Be sure to subscribe and like us on our podcasts, which can be found on iTunes and Google Podcasts, or check out our video channel on YouTube.